Hi, Stephen.
Hello.
I didn't actually make a good on my promise of getting us a better intro, but I did see you bobbing your head. So it gets us in the mood.
Sure.
We missed you last week. I know that you were taking care of personal family emergency. Hope everything's okay there.
Yeah, it turns out, my mom's 88. She has osteoporosis. She fell on
Hmm.
Friday and she shattered one of her balls going into the hip. So that was a bummer, and we were very,
Mm.
very concerned. And so Saturday, several of her children flew down to Florida. She had surgery on Saturday. She's in rehab now, and seems like she's going to be okay. She's a strong-willed woman, and she can work through the pain. So all is good. Um, yeah, and
Okay.
I feel
Well,
like I
it's
was
great
kind
that you were able to be with her, and it sounds like your siblings as well. So that's great. That's all that matters, right? Really, at the end of the
That's
day.
what matters, and it was way more important than a Feuer tip. Could have done it. I was back home, but it was just like not ready.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so speaking of Feuertips, you've got another tip for us today. I just wanted to remind everybody, as every week you're going to be going through your tip, and at the end we've got a little quiz for everybody that wants to participate. We'll be using Kahoot again, so anybody that wants to participate, and we hope you do, in the quiz at the end of the show, if you want to go to kahoot.it, and that's the game pin this week. For those of you that are watching the replay, this only works for the people who are joining us live. So don't try and join this after the fact. It won't work. But
if you can
go in
try
there
if you
and we'll
want
be
to.
watching the screen. Well, but
You can try.
we know it will fail. And I'll be reminding you all of the pin throughout the episode. So that's it. Are you ready to share the tip with our lovely studio audience today?
Just a couple little comments before that. So the point of the quiz really is to kind of reinforce what you learned. It's not a tricky quiz generally, but just to reinforce that you listened to what I had to say and remembered it, whether you think it's right or wrong. The second thing is that from the winners, we will pick a person who will then choose the organization that will receive a
Yes.
$25 donation. And so last week, our winner chose Earthwatch. Go to earthwatch.org. They work on combining scientists and citizens around the world to help heal our planet, which is in great need of healing. So do take the quiz. Hopefully you'll be the winner, and you get to pick from our 3 different organizations. And just so you know, I'm not going to try to do my tip today by myself. It's just way too challenging. So I do have with me Falcor. Falcor is
He does
chilling on my
not
lap.
look he does not look like he will be a ton of help to you, Stephen, but he does look very comfy there. So
He's a
yeah.
consoler to me because unfortunately, the plan for the tip this week is not going as planned. So, okay, so let's dive into the tip. The tip, and I've been teasing about this from a poll last week and also from some tweets today, is about packages. Hopefully, you all know about packages. You love PL/SQL packages. PL/SQL packages are great. They should be the building blocks of any Oracle database-based application. And PL/SQL packages have a whole bunch of great features. One of the features of packages is the initialization section. And so my message to you, my tip for you today is don't use initialization sections in your packages in general. We'll go into more detail, but your first inclination should be to avoid them in the modern era of internet-based applications. Now, what I was going to do to show you why you don't want to use them is go to apex.oracle.com, sign in, and use an app, and I'm going to try it right now. And so unfortunately, apex.oracle.com is not available at the moment. I'm sure it'll be back up really soon. So I'm only going to be able to show you. Anyway, let's dive in. So
The
let's share my
dangers and
screen.
risks of live demos, right? Are you ready for me to share your screen,
I'm
Stephen?
ready. Yes, go ahead and share my
There you
screen.
go.
Let's go to
That's
SQL Developer.
ready.
Okay, so again, I'm going to be running code in SQL Developer, and it's actually not going to demonstrate the problem that I wanted to show you because it's not, well, I'll explain. Okay, but first of all, what is an initialization section? So here is a very, very simple package. So I create a package P. It just has a single global variable, which means it can be accessed by any program unit that has, or any schema that has execute authority on the package. So there's not much to the package spec. The package body consists of nothing but an initialization section. So if you look at this piece of code, this looks just like a procedure. In fact, if we change this word to procedure, it's a procedure, same structure. But when you're talking about packages, what it comes down to is that the declaration section of the package body is literally the list of all the code that is used to implement the package specification elements, of which there are none in this case. And then optionally, you can have a begin block at the very end. So you can have an anonymous block, a nested block, right at the bottom of the package body. And that is called the initialization section. And the idea behind initialization sections is that the first time any user touches that package in their session, this code is run to initialize the package, and then it doesn't run again in your session. So it's a great and very convenient way to say, I need to run some startup code. I need to assign some values to variables. Maybe I have to do a select. I might run a number of different steps. I might validate that some data is correct for the package to work correctly. So there are a number of use cases around initialization. But again, it's all based around this idea that Oracle takes care of it for you. You run it once in your session and done. Very nice. The problem is that that's no longer really valid in a context of a web-based application. So first of all, let's run this code, show you how it's supposed to work, and then we'll talk about life in the world of Apex and internet. So I'm just going to reconnect here just to make sure we're good. So one of the things we're going to be talking about fundamentally is the shift from client-server to web-based or internet-based applications. And what you're going to see here is essentially a client-server kind of situation in the sense that, well, that's good. I'm going to create a table. I'll create a procedure add to T. And all I do is insert a row into T. Then I see how many rows are in the table at that point. I show you how many rows are in the table. And then I commit. Again, my package has nothing in it. Just checking to see if I'm using the, no, not using the package. Okay, was worried about a circular dependency. My package spec, again, is just the declaration of the number. Add to T simply adds to the table. And again, there's nothing in here related to the package. Now, then I have an anonymous block. The anonymous block declares a local variable called n, number, and it initializes it by invocating the package or referencing the package variable. And simply referencing the package variable will kick off the initialization code the first time I run it in my session. And then I'll display the value that I got from the package, which should be 100. And of course, the table should start with 0 rows, so this should show me 1 row. Let's run all this code. Let's make sure that my dbms output is turned on. Let's make really sure. Really sure. Okay. Let's move this up a little bit. Come on, you can do it. Oh, these grabbers drive me crazy. All right, let's run some code. Now what you see here is n after add to T is equal to 1. So 1 row is added. Perfect. And the n value from initialization is 100. So it worked as expected. Simply by referencing this thing, it invoked the package, it declared the variable or instantiated the variable, gave it a value of 100. Okay, now I'm going to run this block again. That's all. And no matter how many times I run it in this session, what you see is that the value is not changed, which makes sense. Nothing changes the value of this variable. It could just as well have been a constant. But what you're also seeing is that this procedure is not being executed, right? I'm not seeing this line again. So the package initialization is working as designed. It ran it once, it initialized my package, and now we're good to go. So that's really nice. However, the problem is that this only makes sense in a client-server environment in which this client, SQL developer, is connected to a session, and that connection persists across all the different calls I make in my session. But when you're running an Apex application, or pretty much any internet-based application, web-based application, it doesn't work that way. What you essentially have is a pool of connections inside the database that is managed these days by ORDS, Oracle REST Data Services. Let's say 100 connections are in the pool. Every time you connect or you issue a server call from your Apex application or whatever application you're running in the browser, every server call is steered into one of those connections. Now, ORDS will make its best effort to keep the same connection. So if you worked with connection 1 before, you're likely to use connection 1 again. That'll be the case if you have, say, less than 100 simultaneous users. It can maintain those connections for you. But of course, in most situations, the whole point of the pool is you have way more than 100 or whatever number of simultaneous connections. So you have to move, or the ORDs will allocate you to a different connection through the pool. What that means is that you cannot rely on the state of that package in your session because it could be a different connection to a different session. Therefore, in internet-based applications like those running in a browser, those like Apex, the package initialization will be run over and over and over again. And in my Apex app that I can't show you, my apologies, I'll be ready for a backup next time. In the Apex app that I built to demonstrate this, you will see that it actually ticks up the number of rows in the table every time I run this block, actually from the SQL command inside Oracle Apex SQL Workshop. Doesn't even have to be inside your application. Apex itself is a browser-based application. So I can't show you that today, but it is definitely the case that you cannot depend on initialization sections to be consistent, or the code being run consistent across sessions. So this code will be run over and over and over again. So it's something that you want to avoid doing. Now, what should you do instead? And this is where, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to put together all the code, reproduce all the code that's sitting in the app. In fact, let's see if it's up now. Wouldn't that be nice? Still not up. Okay, let's go apex.oracle.com and try it.
Hey, Stephen, I just wanted to mention Niels has a question. I've put it up on the screen. If you can take a look at that.
Let's get back to the screen. All I have to do is find my stream. There we go. So doesn't Oracle issue a DBMS session reset package at the end of a request like the mod PL SQL have done it? I don't know. I don't know if Oracle issues a reset package. That would probably make sense, but I don't know those internals. Sorry, Niels. You're probably right because you're really sharp. Any other questions or comments come up?
No, not at the moment, but absolutely feel free if you have any questions, comments, put them in the comments section. And
so the bottom line is that regardless of the internals of what Oracle is doing there or what words is kicking off, you cannot depend on initialization sections unless you're in a client-server environment. And who's in a client-server environment anymore? So what do you do about that? You've got code that you need to run to get things set up. You don't want to put them in initialization section, or maybe you can. So here's the thing. You basically have to move to just-in-time initialization. So basically, let's say I was declaring that global variable. I was assigning it a value in my initialization section because it's going to be used by several different programs in my package. What I would do is take the code in the initialization section, move it into a procedure, and then that procedure can be called before any of the programs that need to rely on the initialization steps. Now, then you could say, but every time I call the procedure, it's going to call the initialization step. So how does that help? Well, inside that procedure, you then have a way to say, I've already done this. For example, if I was setting the value of n to 100 or some other computation, I would say, if n is not null, then do my setup. And then it would only run the one time, or it would run every time, but it would only execute the code if it was needed. And if you do that, you could also put in the initialization section. But I think in general, you're much better off moving your initializations to just-in-time initialization within the specific subprogram units that need it, and others may not need it at all. So it would make life a little bit more complex, but it also might make you a little bit less loosey-goosey and lazy in the way that you design your package. I've seen some packages where there are literally dozens of package-level variables and constants, and sometimes it's just laziness in the sense that I'm going to be using this variable in 16 different places, so why not declare it once at the package level? And then I don't have to declare it in each local procedure or function. And that sounds good. This actually goes back to my tip from 2 weeks ago, good lazy, bad lazy. Definitely that's bad lazy. So that's a shortcut that is really gaining you very little and lots of potential problems because you have this persistent state in your package because of that variable that can then cause issues around, say, Aura 4068 if your package is recompiled. So just-in-time initialization is the best way to go if you need to initialize. And you might also just look at your code and say, you know what? I don't really need to do that initialization at all. I can just deal with it inside my subprograms as needed. So that's the basic tip. Any other comments? Anybody out there using initialization sections and feel like they've gotten some value out of it or they've always avoided them? And so Angel says, I think the best way to keep some constants across all Apex database calls could be application items. So Absolutely. There are a number of things you can use depending on your coding environment. So using application items inside Apex and setting them through a computation or an onload process or post-authentication process are also good ways to do that. That only makes sense, though, for items in the application that you don't need in the backend as well. So the advantage of pushing it into the backend down in your packages is that then it's available not only in your Apex app, but in your backend code as well. Obviously, Apex application items are only good inside Apex, but believe me, I've used them a lot. The dev gym, which I used to work on, has lots of application items. Probably half of them are probably no longer used and we need to get rid of. But it's a good idea on Help, for sure.
Hey, Stephen, you put a poll out on Twitter. Is there anything interesting to share from the results of that? You sort of.
Right.
I think you were asking people. Did I just throw you a curveball?
So it looked like relatively few people were using initialization sections, and that was good. Okay. So it's really is a carryover from the past, and a whole bunch of people never use them at all. And I think that's just probably the best way to go. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to throw up a reminder of, that sounded like I was going to throw up. I'm not going to throw up a reminder of our Kahoot. So anybody wanting to participate in the quiz, go over to kahoot.it. There's the game pin. We've got about 10 people on there. I'm seeing at least 48 people watching. So come on over to the Kahoot.
Take that quiz. And I have a comment from Plowman. I guess declaring global package types and constants are still on the whitelist or still allowed, I think is the question. Interesting. I just had a text message from a person who's asking about this as well. So when you create a package, you can also create types at the package level. So I could say, I want to have a type of Booleans, an array of Booleans that I want to use across my application. So I can declare the type once in a package spec, and then I can reference that type wherever I need it. So yes, Plowman, I think those are fine. And in fact, the direct message I got was about, well, does it make sense to have a single package just of all the different types, custom types I want to build, so that I don't have these types scattered throughout multiple packages and maybe have compilation dependencies. And I'm not exactly sure about how much it matters around compilation dependencies, because if your underlying structures change, you're going to invalidate things somewhere, somehow. But and then you'd also mention constants. So are constants okay in a package spec? And so a global constant at the package spec level is certainly better than a variable in the sense that you can't change it. So a variable in the package specification is generally something you want to avoid, because anybody can make a change to it. There's no way to there's no way to guarantee the data integrity of a variable declared in the package specification. If you move it into the package body, then you can create get and setters to control the values, but certainly constants can't be changed. The only issue there is that you then have state in that package, so that if you have any variables or constants with values, then if that package is recompiled, you can have a cascading effect of invalidations or a negative 4068s, and it can disrupt application users if you're not using addition-based redefinition. But beyond that, certainly global package specifications are probably the best place to put your constants if they're needed across multiple program units. And it looks like Eric Van Ruin is thinking about saying something with his well, ... We have a smart comment from Eric coming. And Plowman, did that address what you were thinking about? Looks like it.
So, Stephen, the dangers of live television, you had issues with apex.oracle.com. I seem to all of a sudden have lost the ability to share my screen. I'm trying to share my Kahoot, but I think we should be okay to do it anyway. I think everybody will see the answers, the question and the answers on their phones. So we might have to wing it that way this time.
Okay.
Let me just see if I can resolve it quickly. And
if you throw up Eric's last comment while you do that, and we'll talk for a little bit about it, so you got time.
There you go.
So Eric says if the constant value is an expression that may change across sessions, for example, it has sysdate, then you have a problem there too. Excellent point, Eric. Right. So if it's not a static expression, which means that it's fixed at compile time. For example, if the constant value was 100, then it would be constant across all sessions. But if it's a non-static expression, which means it's resolved at runtime, that could certainly vary as well. So that's a great point, Eric. Something to watch out for as well. Yep. So as Plowman says, only constant constants, or the terminology that we use inside PL SQL is static expressions, which, by the way, are things that we also use for conditional compilation validations. You can only have conditional compilation flags that are set as static expressions. Thanks, Eric. That was a really great point. No, still no progress? That's funny.
I would now, have to, I think I would have to drop and come back and
that's right. So sure. you're gonna read out the choices then, because I
will read out, but everybody will see them. Yes. I think we're about ready. We have 15 people. Shall we get going? And hopefully this is going to
Let's
be
do the
fine.
quiz now.
We'll see. All right, here we go. So I will start it.
And everybody can see them on my screen as well, I guess, since I'm going to play the quiz as well.
Well, then how about you share your screen?
Oh, I thought I was. Oh, I said stop sharing. Apologies. How's that?
All right, let's add it to the stream. All right, that's a good option, actually. Okay. And I will start.
We'll do the countdown. They like to give you lots of time to get ready, so get ready, folks. This is going to be a really hard quiz. Yes, it's a quiz. Yes, it's multi-select.
What's a good reason? Go ahead.
What's a good reason to not use an initialization section? So you can mark any of these that you think are true. I have nothing to initialize. The package is used in an Apex applications. I prefer just-in-time initialization. I don't use packages.
So which of these are true?
Tap as
and
many.
Stephen, I'm assuming they can select more than one if they want to.
Right. You can select as many as you want. And I'm not going to mark anything because then I'd be giving things away.
See, 6 people answered. 17 seconds to go.
The tension.
I know. How's Falcor doing? Is he still relatively calm?
Yes, Falcor he's a Cavapoo, a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel mixed with a poodle. And Cavalier King Charles Spaniels were bred to be docile lapdogs for the king. And he's an incredible mix of docile lapdog and crazy run after every squirrel he ever sees and run up trees if he could do it dog. All right.
And Stephen, are you the king in this scenario?
Oh, the king.
You're meant to be docile lapdogs for the king.
He's a docile lapdog with anybody who wants to have him on his lap. But yeah, I'm probably his number one lap because I put the pillow up here and he chills.
All right. Stephen, this is unfortunate. Is there any next? Can you no, there's nothing you can see here. I will tell you 11 people said they had nothing selected. I have nothing to initialize. 8 people selected the package is used in an Apex app. 8 people selected I prefer just in time. And 5 people selected I don't use packages.
And the answer was all those choices are correct. So those are all good reasons to not use initialization section. The last one is, I suppose, a little bit silly. In fact, it's a bad reason in the sense that you should definitely not say, I don't use packages. You should use packages in PL SQL. You should avoid using schema level procedures and functions like create or replace procedure, create or replace function. But if you're not using packages for whatever reason, well, of course you're not going to use an initialization section. Yeah. So that was basically a test of logic. All right. Thanks, everybody.
So I'm very bummed that I wasn't able to share my screen because we had Hayden came in first, Plowman came in second, and whoever PFN is came in third. So, but we'll share the results.
All right. Great.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, everybody, for attending. My apologies that we didn't show you the Apex app. And maybe next week I'll just start up by saying, by the way, here it is, proof. And in the meantime, we will publish a blog post shortly covering the same material. So check out my Feuertips page on Insa.
Yeah.
And you can watch all the previous sessions and learn more about PL SQL. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.